Good morning. On behalf of the QRDI Council, I'm delighted to welcome you to the Biomedical and Health Scientific Research webinar, where we will touch upon our 2025 research grant calls. I'm Sara Abdallah, and I'm here today with the rest of the QRDI medical team, Dr. Mohammed Jarrar, Dr. Sadim Jawhar, and Dr. Amna Abu Al-Maali, as well as our distinguished representatives from our partners, from MOPH, Dr. Michael Furneaux, and from QPHI, Dr. Hamdi Mbarak. We appreciate you taking the time to join us today as we outline our funding opportunities that we have detailedly crafted to advance biomedical science and improve healthcare outcomes. Please utilize this session as an opportunity to gain insights into our strategic priorities, eligibility criteria, and the overall application process for the current funding cycle. Towards the end, we encourage you to actively engage and ask questions and connect with our team to maximize the impact of your application as well as your proposals. Before we delve into today's agenda, I wanted to take a moment to reflect on the vision and mission that defines the biomedical and health pillar. At the heart of our efforts are four key priorities. First, we are committed to addressing national health priorities and challenges, and this means conducting cutting-edge research to ensure its translation into real-world solutions that have tangible impact on healthcare and the well-being of our communities. Our goal ultimately is to bridge the gap between discovery and application, where we hope to ensure that the research that we support truly makes a difference for Qatar and globally. Second, we strive to craft dynamic platforms for innovation, and this is through fostering collaboration, creativity, technological advancements, and hope that by forming these platforms, it serves as the foundation for not only research, but solutions as well. Third, we aim to accelerate economic diversification and deliver tangible benefits and outcomes. Through our initiatives, we aim to contribute to building a resilient economy, one that leverages the potential of biomedical research to create new opportunities that will drive sustainable growth for Qatar. And finally, we are deeply committed to empowering homegrown researchers. By nurturing and supporting our local talent, we aim to build a strong community of researchers that will lead the way in addressing Qatar's health challenges and eventually shape the future of biomedical research for Qatar. Ultimately, these priorities form the core of our mission, which is to drive impactful research, foster innovation, and build a robust ecosystem that aligns with Qatar's National Vision 2030. It's also important to note that the biomedical and health pillar is part of a broader research ecosystem, which is represented by 5 priority areas within the Council: energy, digital technology, society, resource sustainability, and of course, health. As we delve into the vision and opportunities offered by the biomedical and health pillar, I want to emphasize that our focus also goes beyond health-specific research. So while addressing pressing health challenges remains central to our mission, we also embrace interdisciplinary research, recognizing that many of the solutions to healthcare challenges lie at an intersection of the different disciplines. So for instance, by integrating digital technologies, environmental sciences, and social sciences, we can create transformative innovations that improve healthcare outcomes and address systemic challenges. So each of these priority areas represents a vital component of Qatar's strategy for research and development. And I'm also pleased to share with you that there are funding opportunities within these different priority areas, and they're also currently open for you to explore through our portal. Today's webinar has been structured to guide you through key aspects of our 2025 funding initiatives and research priority areas. The first half of the webinar will dive deeper into the newly established calls, advancing neuro and mental health research, and the road to biopharma calls. These are 2 initiatives that have been set up through a joint partnership with the Ministry of Public Health. We will then move on to details of our 8th cycle of Path Towards Precision Medicine, and this is done in partnership with Qatar Precision Health Institute. We will then cover the application details and funding details, and finally lightly touch upon our new and exciting biocommunity initiative. So the Advanced Neuro and Mental Health Research Call was established through an ecosystem study, and this was driven by the growing need to tackle the rising burden of mental health disorders and neurological conditions. This is an area of great interest for Qatar, and consequently, we adopted our strategies to address these challenges. Through this call, we aim to deepen our understanding of the biomedical, physiological, and social mechanisms underlying mental illness and neurological disorders, and at the same time, identify feasible, cost-effective interventions to prevent and treat these conditions effectively. As part of the call, we have outlined a range of areas of investigation that reflects the breadth and depth of these research opportunities. And this includes, but are not limited to, emerging technologies, such as those for mental health and neurological disorders, mood disorders, which can include depression and bipolar disorder, anxiety disorders, such as psychotic disorders like schizophrenia and personality disorders, neurodevelopmental conditions, including ADHD, autism, and intellectual disabilities, neurodegenerative disorders like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, and other critical areas such as PTSD, substance use disorders, chronic pain syndromes, neuroinflammatory conditions, etc. And while this list provides a snapshot of potential research topics, we want to emphasize that this call is open to innovative proposals across the diverse domains. And specifically, if you are to explore, please align it with the broader objectives of advancing neuro and mental health research. So we encourage you to explore novel approaches to address especially unmet needs and the emerging challenges within this field. The call encompasses 5 research priority areas. This is the first of the 5 areas requesting for epidemiological studies. These studies aim to understand the prevalence of both mental and neurological disorders in Qatar to inform coordinated health, social, and economic policies. And the goal is to transition towards a more sustainable system that promises improved population health outcomes. This includes studies that collect and link biological, clinical, environmental, and social data from patients, cohorts, and other relevant groups. Furthermore, the epidemiological research should focus on understanding social and economic impact, risk factors, and early prevention strategies. The second research priority area is on precision mental and neurological health. This area encompasses studies aimed at improving diagnosis, prevention, and treatment by considering various factors such as genomics, epigenomics, neurobiology, environmental influences, life experiences, and neurodevelopmental aspects. Moreover, it addresses the influence of social and cultural factors, taking into account psychosocial, religious, and cultural nuances specific to Qatar's diverse population. Finally, this priority area further encourages the exploration of the impacts of social media and digital technologies on an individual's mental well-being. The third priority area is on emerging technologies. It focuses on developing and improving data-informed decision support systems and healthcare solutions using modern technologies such as AI, machine learning, and wearable devices. The aim is to leverage on these technologies for personalized interventions and precision diagnostics. The research area includes the integration of data-driven algorithms, AI-based early warning systems, and patient-centered care approaches to enhance prevention, diagnosis, and treatment strategies. The fourth priority area involves research on neuromodulation techniques, behavioral therapies, and digital interventions across all life stages. The objective is to refine neuroscience-based metrics and develop innovative therapies that can deliver personalized treatments more efficiently. Research investigations should explore approaches like transcranial magnetic stimulation, deep brain stimulation, and brain-computer interfaces to address a wide range of psychiatric and neurodegenerative disorders. Additionally, digital interventions that provide scalable and accessible solutions to behavioral and neurological challenges are strongly encouraged. Finally, the last priority area emphasizes on the importance of understanding and addressing neurodevelopmental disorders. Studies should focus on early diagnosis, the impact of genetic and environmental risk factors, and the development of interventions to support children and adolescents in their social, cognitive, and emotional growth. Research areas can further include the effectiveness of different educational and therapeutic approaches, aiming to foster inclusivity and improved quality of life for affected individuals and families. Our second call was done in response to the National Development Strategy, 3 Outcomes and National Health Strategy. So QRDI, in partnership with MOPH, launched the first rapid cycle called Road to Biopharma. This research call aims to establish a balanced regulatory ecosystem that fosters innovation in biopharmaceuticals, safeguard patient safety, and enhances global accessibility to high-quality medicines. The call in general aims to foster foundational research and seeks to be a catalyst to building a robust infrastructure and establishing much-needed regulatory frameworks to lay the solid platforms for future advancements in biopharmaceutical research for Qatar. So when we refer to biopharma, we're addressing a branch of the pharmaceutical industry that involves the use of biological processes and living organisms to develop drugs and therapies. This is a field that encompasses a wide range of products, and this includes biologics, which are large complex molecules produced from living cells, and examples of this could include monoclonal antibodies, vaccines, and recombinant proteins. Gene therapies, which is the treatment that involves modifying genes to treat or prevent diseases. Cell therapies, which utilizes the use of cells to repair or replace damaged tissues or organs. And finally, biosimilars, or biologic medical products that are highly similar to already approved reference products intended to provide more affordable treatment options. The first of the main objective of this call strives to advocate for a regulatory framework that embraces personalized medicine. And this is from gene therapies to biologics and pharmacogenomics. So by supporting clear, flexible guidelines, we hope to accelerate the translation of new technologies into real-world treatments. Second, we intend to support the creation of We intend to support the creation of regulations that keep pace with emerging innovations, and this includes AI-driven drug discovery, CRISPR-based gene editing, and mRNA technologies. These cutting-edge tools allow for more precise interventions and significantly improves the speed and success of the rate of drug development. And third, we hope to formulate and advocate for adaptive pathways that enable expedited evaluation of promising therapies using evidence generated alongside clinical trials for quicker, more data-driven decisions. And the goal of this approach is to help healthcare systems respond rapidly to urgent medical needs while maintaining high standards of safety and efficiency. Fourth, our focus is on environmental sustainability, pharmaceutical manufacturing, and waste management. So through the development of green drugs and limiting pharmaceutical population, we hope to preserve both the public health and ecosystems that we rely upon. And fifth, we aim to promote mutual recognition of clinical trial data and the regulatory reviews across the borders. So by streamlining data sharing among global regulatory bodies, the goal is to minimize duplication and bring life-saving treatments to our patients faster. Our sixth objective is to support new technologies and methodologies in biopharmaceutical research. So we encourage novel approaches, whether in biomarker identification, combinational therapies, or advanced formulation techniques, to ultimately address today's complex challenges. And finally, the seventh objective of this call is to prioritize research initiatives focusing on serious health concerns or those conditions with highly unmet needs. So by directing our resources where they can have the greatest impact, the goal is to propel the development of a transformative therapy to improve quality of life for our patients in Qatar and eventually worldwide. The first of the 4 research priority areas of this call focuses on developing innovative biotechnological methods and tools that facilitate the discovery, development, and commercialization of biopharmaceuticals. And this includes research on bioprocess optimization, high throughput screening, and integration of AI and machine learning in drug development. The second priority area calls for investigation on the ethical considerations and regulatory frameworks surrounding biopharmaceutical research and development. This area encourages research on ethical trial design, informed consent, data privacy, and the responsible use of biotechnology, ensuring compliance with regulatory standards while promoting public trust. The third priority area explores models for centralizing resources and data and utilization of expertise within the biopharmaceutical research community. So this includes establishing collaborative networks, shared databases, and resource repositories to streamline research efforts, enhance accessibility to cutting-edge technologies, and foster collaboration among researchers and institutions. Finally, the fourth priority area explores adaptive regulatory frameworks and guidelines that accommodate advancements in personalized medicine, such as gene therapies, biologics, and AI-driven innovations. This includes research on creating flexible pathways for evaluating new therapies, developing mutual recognition agreements for clinical trial data across borders, and promoting environmentally sustainable regulatory practices in pharmaceutical manufacturing. And with that, I would like to pass the floor over to the representative from Ministry of Public Health, Dr. Michael Furneaux, who is an advisor at the Ministry of Public Health. Dr. Michael.
Thanks very much indeed. The ministry's role is essentially policy making and regulation. So to emphasize, it's not primarily a research organization, but there may be situations in which it can provide some support to you. And some of the questions that we've been asked, for example, is access to data. In the future, the ministry will house I think a very powerful data set in an enterprise data warehouse, which will encompass ultimately the whole healthcare sector. But at the moment, that's not in operation. So if you wish to acquire data from the healthcare sector, then that's best obtained from the particular healthcare provider. And probably that's mainly, certainly in the mental health and neuroscience arena, going to be HMC. In order to do so, it would have to be anonymized data. Only anonymized data, non-identifiable data would be available. And to obtain non-identifiable data, that requires, in the case of retrospective data, an IRB exemption. In the case of prospective data, an IRB approval. And it would also require a data sharing agreement if you're applying from an institution outside HMC. So the access point within HMC, if this is where you're going, is Paul Halliday, who is part of the HICT department at HMC. So that's the mechanism. If you want to have discussions in relation to either of the two calls with a representative from within the ministry, then the two key people are for the neuroscience and mental health call, Susan Cleland, who is the executive director for the National Health Programme. So she can clearly, where appropriate, provide advice regarding policy, regarding strategy, how this may fit. And that may, depending on the application that you're putting together, may be useful to you. And for the Road to Biopharma, the contact would be Mohammed Babika, who is a member of the pharmacy department with particular responsibility for registration and also drug pricing. So can advise on current regulatory processes in terms of new drugs. So that's essentially the context. Happy to take questions if that's helpful. I don't know whether we want to do that now or at the end, Sarah.
We'll keep it to the end, Dr. Michael. Thank you so much. Thank you. Moving on to our third call, with the success of the past cycles of the path towards precision medicine, and in partnership with QPHI, we're very happy to have launched the 8th cycle of PPM. And this comes in alignment with the national efforts to encourage genomics research and facilitate future implementation of genomic and precision medicine through the utilization of QPHI sample repositories. PPM will continue to support the growing genomic research community in Qatar, supporting the exploration of genetic bases of diseases that are prevalent to Qatar. So the first objective of this call is to support research that leverages genomic and other omic data to guide healthcare decisions. By investing in projects that enhance our understanding of disease mechanisms and genetic risk factors, the aim is to drive improvements in disease prevention, early diagnosis, and more effective treatments. The integration of multi-omic data into clinical workflows is a crucial step towards personalized medicine, and throughout this call, the goal is to facilitate this transformation. Qatar has also made significant strides in genomic research, and so we seek to build on this foundation by supporting projects that utilize invaluable specimens and data generated by QPHI and other local stakeholders. By aligning research efforts with existing national resources, we want to maximize efficiency, ensure data harmonization, and foster collaborations that lead to meaningful discoveries and applications. Our funding priorities focus on projects with a clear and measurable clinical impact. So research must go beyond academic exploration and demonstrate potential for real-world implementation in precision medicine. Whether this is through biomarker discovery, pharmacogenomics, or novel therapeutic strategies, we are looking for projects that will translate into improved patient outcomes, optimized treatment protocols, and better healthcare strategies tailored to Qatar's population. The successful implementation of precision medicine is not solely a scientific challenge. It also requires the establishment of a public trust, as well as regulatory frameworks and ethical consideration. So we encourage research that includes community engagement, those that ensure that populations understand the benefit from genomic advancements. Additionally, projects should consider the policies and regulatory landscape required for responsible implementation, and this includes ethical data sharing, informed consent modules, and guidelines for integrating genomic insights into clinical practices. And finally, to maximize the impact, we aim to broaden our engagement with the clinical research community to attract high-quality, competitive proposals. Our funding strategy prioritizes research that leads to tangible research outcomes, emphasizing collaboration not only between researchers, but as well with healthcare providers and policymakers. The first of the 5 research priority areas within this call focuses on artificial intelligence and technology solutions. The priority area has been broken down into 5 critical areas that have been poised to transform healthcare through precision medicine. The first is the application of artificial intelligence for analyzing body images, for diagnosis and treatment planning, and for enhanced diagnostic accuracy and reproducibility. And this, of course, is important as it leverages on the potential to streamline processes. Second is the integration of electronic medical record systems to allow seamless data exchange among different healthcare providers. It also considers data governance with emphasis on secure and compliant data handling to ensure patient privacy while enabling comprehensive analytics. The third is the incorporation of genomic and multi-omic data into the electronic health records. And this is to tailor treatment plans to individual profiles, as well as support the facilitation of collaborative research on omic data that's accessible to clinicians and scientists. And fourth is the development of bioinformatic tools and clinical interpretation solutions for clinical utility of genomics and other omic data, which is essential for accelerating the discovery of biomarkers and therapeutic targets. Fifth is the development and utilization of innovative precision medicine through clinical research designs and technologies, and this can include digital tools, wearables, EMR analytics, imaging technologies, and more. And the potential outcome of this research area is new solutions that will facilitate enhanced handling of healthcare data for research and clinical purposes. And furthermore, they can also be utilized for purposes such as anticipating preventable conditions by identifying patients at risk for certain conditions and diseases before the onset and presentation of symptoms. The second priority area focuses on community engagement, ethics, policies, and implementation strategies. This is an essential area to focus on, as clear ethical frameworks and practical implementation pathways is very much needed in translating scientific discoveries into meaningful health benefits. So the first point addresses behavioral analysis research, where precision medicine and its focus on genomic and other omics can seem overwhelming or abstract to the broader community. So by employing behavioral analysis in our awareness campaigns, we hope that we can efficiently gauge public perceptions, tailor our messaging, and address any concerns. This is important, ensuring that the transition into personalized healthcare is shaped around genuine public understanding and trust. And secondly, this priority area requests for defining the best practices when it comes to regulation and ethical approaches, especially regarding data privacy, consent, and equitable access. The third point covers engaging the public and non-specialist healthcare workforce in supporting national precision medicine efforts. The success of any national precision medicine effort really relies on inclusive communication and training. And many of the non-specialist healthcare providers are often the first point of contact for these patients. So providing them with accessible education in genomics and other omics can enhance confidence, integrate precision medicine principles into routine healthcare, and ultimately improve patient outcome. The fourth point addresses social and biological inequalities, where healthcare disparities, whether it's social, economic, or biological, can significantly impede the adoption of new healthcare services. So we must proactively identify these inequalities and ensure that precision medicine initiatives do not inadvertently widen existing health gaps, but rather help to close them. The fifth point explores investigating facilitators and barriers to integration. So beyond clinical trials and pilot programs, we need systemic research into what we truly hope to drive or potentially consider those that hinder the movement of precision medicine from laboratory to everyday practices. So these factors can include technology cost, interoperability of electronic health records, or even regulatory variations. And finally, as genomic testing becomes more prevalent, it's crucial to compare the different interpretation platforms and reporting formats that's currently available. This will help clinicians as well as geneticists to primary healthcare physicians provide accurate, patient-friendly genetic insights and enable informed shared decision-making as well. The third research priority area is on disease risk stratification within population groups. The goal here is to transform population-level data into highly precise interventions that prevent or delay the onset of illness, as well as to optimize patient care. So firstly, through the categorization and stratification of diseases in large cohorts, whether it's locally or regionally, the aim is to produce evidence-based applications that guide individualized treatment plans. And by organizing patients into specific risk categories, this can create recommendations for the most suitable interventions and track effectiveness in real time. Secondly, we look for exploration on the longitudinal dynamics of diseases. And this includes through stratified medicine, where aspects such as harnessing biomarkers and other molecular signatures allows for more tailored approaches through core interventions and preventions. Or through early pre-disease detection by identifying subtle warnings in an individual that's at risk, or through phenotyping and utilization of biobanks and biorepositories, which can open the door to discovering nuanced disease subtypes and refine prevention and treatment tactics as well. And finally, this priority area also considers the social, gene, environmental determinants of health and highlights the importance of a holistic approach to precision health planning. The fourth priority area looks at the integration of genomics and other omics in clinical diagnostics. The aim is to develop more comprehensive diagnostic tools covering more disease markers to provide enhanced predictive power for complex disorders or even shortened diagnostic odysseys for families. The proposals that are submitted to this priority area can also address applicable workflows within target clinical settings and may suggest practical frameworks and cost-effective approaches that will facilitate future adoptions. Many of these workflows can include solutions tackling stages from sample collection all the way to clinical report production and even patient counseling. And it would also involve clinical interpretation pipelines, formation of multidisciplinary teams, as well as compliance with various local and international laboratory accreditation guidelines. And the potential outcome can extend beyond disease diagnosis to providing clinicians and patients with evidence-based disease prediction tools and hopefully empower early intervention programs in a more personalized way. And finally, the last research priority area covers pharmacogenomics from discovery to implementation. First, it considers genetic variations and adverse drug reactions. So understanding how genetic differences influence medication safety and efficiency in commonly prescribed treatments. Secondly, it considers drug response and safety, looking at investigations and how individual genetic profiles can guide optimized therapeutic strategies and reduce adverse outcomes. Third, it encompasses personalized therapies, and this is through developing precision-based interventions, improving drug selection for chronic and complex health conditions, for example. And fourthly, it includes targeted immunomodulatory approaches. And this considers aspects such as utilizing pharmacogenomic data to inform novel patient-tailored treatment strategies, for example, in areas such as inflammatory or autoimmune settings. And finally, applying pharmacogenomics, pharmacomicrobiomics, and other omics tools to enhance the safety and effectiveness of widely used therapeutic agents. And with that, I would now like to pass the floor to our focal point and representative from QPHI, Dr. Hamdi Mbarak. Dr. Hamdi.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sarah. Most of you are familiar with the PPMs, but for those who are new here, in addition to what Dr. Sarah mentioned about the objectives and the thematic and focus areas, here I would like to highlight a few information on the samples and data available and the resources that are available through QPHI for sample and data. So at QPHI, we have generated over 30,000 whole genome sequence for Qatari nationals and long-term residents. And we want to leverage this data with this PPM call for the researcher to maximize the use of data and come up with the implementation and clinical implementation projects. So we highly recommend to use our data, whether it is specimens or data. And as you can see in the boxes here, we have, in addition to the genomics data, the whole genome sequence data, we have several layers of other omics data like epigenomic, transcriptomic, metabolomics, proteomics. And we do have also record linkage with the hospital, with the EMR data for a subset of our whole cohort. So we have at least 50% of our whole genome sequence cohort are linked to the EMR data. And this data is also available for the researchers. So the awardees will be exempted from charging. So the access will be waived for the awarded project for all the data that we have in-house, except some specimens as appropriate for the research projects. And to have an overview about the numbers and the detailed data, whether it is about omics data or the questionnaires data or the EMR data, you can visit the QPHI website, and there is a section called Data Catalog, and there you can find all the information related to the data that we have at QPHI. So how to utilize our QPHI resources? So you don't need to budget for it. As I mentioned, it's waived. The cost of access to the data is waived for the genomic data, the phenotypic data, the clinical data, the EMR data, and the omics data. So all you need is to go to our QPHI research portal on our website. And for example, if you need to access to some biological samples and you need to know the cost of this, you will find all this information on our QPHI research portal. In addition, if you want to query about the numbers for your specific, let's say, disease or ICD-10 code, you can also submit a query through the research portal and get these numbers and make your calculation, for example, for statistical power or any other kind of calculation you need for your grant. You do need to provide a QPHI support letter if you plan to use our data, and you can apply for the support letter also via our website. Once the project is awarded, of course, we follow the procedure for data access, and you need to submit data access application in order to get the IRP for your project. And if you require any biological samples, you need to sign an MTA.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hamdi, for that information. So we will move on now to the application process. Once you start your application process, you would normally submit your proposal as a new submission. This would also be the case if you're resubmitting a proposal that was originally sent to a different, more recent call. Since the option to flag it as a resubmission will not present itself, you would need to declare it on your note to QRDI that it is a resubmission. Where it is applicable for you to flag a proposal as a resubmission upon applying can only be done if you are resubmitting a proposal to the same call. So for example, if you previously applied to PPM and are now submitting the proposal again to PPM, you will be able to find an option to flag it specifically as a resubmission. The structure of our national research grants and our rapid research grant varies in their funding details. For PPM, the program provides up to 800,000 Qatar riyals per year for up to 3 years. And moreover, 65% of the research team's effort and 80% of the annual budget must be based in Qatar. While the ANMR call offers up to 547,500 Qatar riyals per year for a duration up to 2 years. And similar to PPM, 65% of the research team efforts and 80% of the annual budget must be based in Qatar. For our rapid research grant, the RTBC call, it is structured to be shorter and more targeted. So it provides up to 300,000 Qatar riyals for up to 12 months. Here, the requirement is that 100% of the research effort and budget remains inside Qatar, emphasizing on local engagement and rapid outcomes. For ANMR and the PPM grants, they share similar cost component categories in terms of personnel, equipment, travel, miscellaneous, and indirect costs. Whereas the RTBC grant does not include travel and indirect costs. Furthermore, co-funding and cost sharing is encouraged across all our programs. We also strongly encourage you to explore the QRDI portal to identify and access specialized equipment that has been flagged and deposited and mentions whatever is currently available within Qatar's research ecosystem. And the platform is really great at showcasing a broad range of tools and technologies housed at multiple academic and research institutions. And some of these resources can include advanced imaging systems, specialized laboratory instruments, and other essential equipment that you may find useful. In terms of the eligibility criteria for institutions, any academic, public, private, or nonprofit organization that's based in Qatar with a QRDI approved research office is eligible to be the submitting institution. I also want to bring to your attention that collaborations with external institutions is only acceptable for ANMR and PPM, as long as there is at least one affiliated PI from the submitting institution. Moving on to the research team, the lead principal investigator or principal investigator must be affiliated with an approved Qatari institution and should hold a QRDI approved terminal degree.
Thank you, Noha.
A list of these
Thank you,
terminal
Malik.
degrees can be found
يعطيكم العافية for this
through our
comprehensive
QRDI portal.
presentation.
Moreover, as a lead PI, you can only submit one application per call, but may be listed on up to 3 active roles within a call, and that's for ANMR or PPM. Other team members can include postdocs, research associates, graduates, undergraduate students, or additional technical staff. Please note as well that for ANMR and RTBC, staff from the Ministry of Public Health are not eligible to serve as a PI or a team member role. And for PPM, staff from QPHI are not eligible as PIs or team members. And finally, we also want to point out that as a consultant, you cannot receive compensation. In order to submit your proposal, please do so via the QGrants portal. Once you log in, you will complete the main sections of the proposal, which includes summary, research areas, institutions, personnel, research plan, budget, ethical compliance, and IP. And please, in addition to filling out the online form, be sure to upload the required supporting documents. And these are typically, a research plan, a detailed research plan, a support letter from your submitting institution, and any other additional letters, such as those from our joint partners. And this is only if they apply to your proposal and application. Each section and document plays a really critical role. And it demonstrates the validity of your application, the feasibility, and the compliance of your proposal. So please take each section with great care and make sure that you review our guidelines in full before finalizing your application, as incomplete submissions could result in some delays or ineligibility. So please take that to consideration as well. All proposals are also expected to be vetted by your research offices of your submitting institution. So on to the pre-award phase. This slide basically outlines the journey of your proposal from submission to funding decision. It begins with proposal registration and submission, where you log into our portal and complete all of the sections that we just went through and provide us with the necessary documents. Next, the proposal undergoes a vetting process from your research offices, which is then followed by a screening phase to check for eligibility, completeness, and compliance with our guidelines. And then this is followed by the proposal evaluation phase, in which experts evaluate the technical, scientific, and the strategic merits of your submission. And once the reviews are completed, we will announce the funding decisions. For ANMR and PPM, the evaluation proceeds in 2 distinct phases. First, there is a peer review evaluation phase, which accounts for 40% of the overall score and focuses on scientific and technical strengths of your proposal. And then following that is the programmatic review, which makes up 60% of the evaluation, where broader considerations such as alignment with strategic priorities, feasibility, and impact on Qatar's research ecosystem is assessed. In contrast, RTBC proposals undergo a single comprehensive review, which forms 100% of the evaluation of the proposal. This review considers both the scientific merits as well as the strategic relevance of the proposal in one integrated process. In terms of the timeline, all the calls are now open and welcome submissions. The deadline for PPM and ANMR is on the 12th of March, with the final vetting by the research office to be done by the 20th, by the 20th of March. And after which we will move on into the review stage and plan to announce awards in July 2025. Meanwhile, for RTBC, the call closes March 5th. And research offices must finalize its submission and vetting by March 13th. And similar to the other calls, we anticipate announcing the funding decisions in July of 2025. So that basically summarizes the calls and the application process. We also just want to take a minute to touch upon a new initiative that we've established. It's the Biomed community. And the goal of the Biomed community is to bring researchers, healthcare practitioners, and industry partners and policymakers, all working in an intersection of biomedical science and healthcare innovation. The objective is really to foster research innovation and to ensure that new discoveries are quickly translated into tangible benefits. And we also want to focus on accelerating knowledge sharing, providing members with opportunities to exchange insights, data sets, and best practices. And beyond these factors, the community will also play a role in helping us to shape our funding initiatives by providing feedback on emerging scientific areas and unmet clinical needs as well. So the inputs will really help us to align our programs with the national priorities. The goal of this community is also to shape overall strategies and sector priorities to ensure that Qatar's biomedical agenda remains agile and forward-looking. And finally, the community helps to fill in gaps when it comes to identifying policies, which is an essential step in addressing clinical challenges in healthcare. If you would like more details on becoming a member, please refer to the email shared at the end of the slide to Ms. Ibtisam Yusuf. So thank you so much for that. And with this, I'd like to pass the floor over to my colleague, Dr. Sadim, to address any of the Q&As.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sarah, and thanks to Dr. Michael and Dr. Hamdi for their valuable input. We can now have your questions. If you have any question, please feel free to type it in the Q&A box. We already have a couple of questions. We'll start addressing them. So we have a question about the ANMR call, about the maximum number of PIs, any recommendation. So there is no really exact number that we can tell you this is the maximum number of the research team or the PIs on a project. All depends on the objectives, the work packages, the size of the projects, the number of experiments to be done. So we cannot really give an exact number. This is up to the judgment of the lead PI, and it's also part of the evaluation, since the research team qualification, complementarity, the size is also part of the evaluation. Another question is about how the budget and the IP divided between Qatar and outside Qatar. For the budget, in the case of ANMR and the PPM, the budget is the budget and the effort is allowed inside and outside Qatar. 80% of the budget must be inside Qatar and up to 20% outside Qatar. For the ANMR, though, the capital equipment must be spent inside Qatar. When we speak about the RTBC call, since it's a rapid call and the focus also is to build capacity inside Qatar, the budget and effort must be inside Qatar. Regarding the IP ownership is for the awardees, and it's the distribution of the IP between the submitting institution and the collaborative institution It depends on the discussion, agreement, and finalization between the collaborative institution. Although QRDI also requires just a research and education IP, right? So it's not commercialization, it's just for research and education purposes. For more details, you can also, regarding the IP, submit a ticket with your exact question, and we will also direct it to our IP manager to address it. We have a question here about the resources allocated by the ministry to the ANMR call. So who is the focal point for the ANMR call from the ministry? Perhaps maybe Dr. Michael, would you like to address this question?
So the focal point was Susan Cleland, whose contact details are on the page in front of you.
Thank you so much. We have a question here. Would it be possible to get access to the presentation and the recording? The slides of this presentation will be available on the website of the PPM, ANMR, and RTBC call. Can we know the total number of PPM grants to be offered this round? So it all depends on the number of submissions, the quality of the proposals we receive, and the budget availability. We have a question here about the PPM call, perhaps for Dr. Sarah and Dr. Hamdi. Would it be possible to limit, for the PPM call, would it be possible to limit research study to personalized imaging? So not including genomic related techniques. Maybe Dr. Sarah and then Dr. Hamdi, if you would like to elaborate.
I think I'll pass the floor to Dr. Hamdi.
Yeah, that is possible. So we do have imaging data from the MRI, from other resources at the biobank, and you can see it on the data catalog, and it's possible to use only imaging data.
Thank you. Here a question saying, if I submit a previously not awarded PPM, and can it be submitted in biopharma this cycle, and is it a resubmission or a new submission? As Dr. Sarah stated, for the resubmission can be happening from one call to another. The previously PPM should be coming from the most recent PPM, which is the PPM 7, and should have been a new submission. So it cannot be a resubmission in a PPM 7 and be submitted again, because resubmission is allowed only one time. So if it's a new submission in PPM 7 that didn't get awarded, can go to the biopharma this cycle. In the system, you will have to select new because it cannot be flagged as a resubmission in the system. It will be new automatically, but you have to flag it in comments to QNRF and perhaps in the research plan that this is a resubmission to a previously unawarded PPM 7 proposal. Another question here I got, is it essential to get a letter from the MOPH resources regarding the ANMR call, the mental health call?
So as we mentioned earlier, in terms of resourcing, the bulk of the resourcing that I guess applicants may be requesting would be likely to be data. And that would be, as it were, within the gift of the healthcare provider rather than the ministry. We've given a contact name. If there are issues regarding policy and so on, then clearly Susan Cleland may be helpful, and it may be appropriate on occasion to give a support letter. But I think it would be on a case-by-case basis as to whether support from the ministry was required or not.
Thank you so much, Dr. Michael. We are a new startup in Qatar. How do we gain the QRD approved research office status? So please visit our portal. There you will have the policies and the forms that you can fill to apply for a research office. It's basically to ensure that the submitting institution have the required capacity for research, have the required facilities, and have all the policies and process. You can find it on our website, on our portal. And if you cannot locate it on the portal, please submit a ticket and we will direct you to the required documents and the required process. I'm currently on 3 active PPM calls, ending on 27th of on March 2025, 2026, and 2027. Am I eligible to submit a new PPM? As we said, each cycle you can submit only act only once as a lead PI, but the total count of the participation across all PPM cycles as active roles, either lead PI or PI, is 3. So if you have consumed these roles in the previous cycles, you cannot participate or submit in PPM 8. However, this excludes project that ends before June 2025. So if you have 3 roles, but one of them ends, as you indicated, in March 2025, yes, you can participate or submit one PPM 8. We have a question here. I think it's for Dr. Hamdi. It says, what kind of epigenetic data is available? Is it for all patients?
No, we do have a epigenetic data. It's epigenetic profile for 1,000 participants. It's done on the EPIC array 850, and so 1,000, almost 1,000 participants.
Thank you, Dr. Hamdi. Dr. Sarah, a question here states, what tools do you use to detect AI-generated proposals as you would with Authenticate? So if we are using a tool to detect AI-generated proposals as we do with Authenticate.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a topic that has been brought up several times internally, and we are working with our IT department to address this as effectively as possible.
Thank you. Dr. Michael, if you can explain again the IRB road to data access by external partners or collaborators. So perhaps the slide that you have kindly explained regarding the IRB exemption review and so on.
Yep. So first of all, the only data that can be provided is anonymized data which is not identifiable. So that's the first thing. The vast majority of these data, I think, will be held by HMC. Certainly for the mental health call, that would be the case. You can imagine instances in which it might be CITRA based, but the majority will be HMC based. If the data are retrospective, then that requires a statement by IRB that it's IRB exempt, and it would require a data transfer agreement between the two institutions. And the contact is in HICT in the case of HMC, which is Paul Halliday. If the data are prospective, then it actually requires an IRB approval, which is obviously a bigger process. But that's essentially the process.
Thank you, Dr. Michael. We have a question here saying, can you please let us know when the Arabic documents will be available for the ANMR call? It's currently available on the ANMR webpage and PPM also. Both are available. So if you go to the document center, scroll down, you will find the documents in Arabic language. External collaborators outside Qatar, still 35 effort and 20% budget limits. Yes, for both PPM and ANMR, while it's 100% inside Qatar for RTBC. Dr. Hamdi, a question here about QPHI resources. What are the types of biological samples that QPHI can provide?
Okay, so in addition to the data catalog, and if you are looking for specifically the number and the data sample type, so you can go to our website, and there is a section called research, and the research, there is a tab called helpful information, and if you scroll down, you find a table highlighting all the sample types and numbers that we have. So we have Buffy code, DNA, erythrocytes, SPAX gene, plasma, RNA, saliva and RNA, serum, urine, viable cells.
Thank you, Dr. Hamdi. And as Dr. Hamdi indicated, they can always go to QPHI portal if they require further clarification. Thank you. Dr. Sara, we have a question here. There is an overlap between PPM and ANMR priority areas. If a neuro proposal is addressing diagnostic biomarkers, should it go under PPM or ANMR?
I think to answer this, we would leave it to you as an investigator, to your discretion, to see which area fits best for you. Yes, there are slight overlaps, but there are differences between the calls as well, with PPM utilizing resources through QPHI and ANMR creating a little bit more flexibility. But it's up to you to decide which call fits best into your research question.
Thank you. We have many questions. I believe we answered about the focal point for the MOPH. They have been mentioned in this presentation, and the slides will be available, so you can check for the ANMR and for the RTBC, the focal points, and they can address your questions and assist you accordingly. Can a consultant be granted authorship upon their work on the project and participating in writing manuscripts? So consultants can be added to the research proposal, but consultants here are seniors or advisors that help in addressing certain question or solving certain problem. They should not be involved in designing or in performing the work per se. That's why they cannot be awarded from the grant as part of the grant, and should not be included or having IP rights as part of this funded project. Can we apply to different calls as lead PI? The calls PPM, ANMR, RTPC are not linked to each other, so the count of roles is not linked to each other. And you can apply as a lead PI in the PPM and the lead PI in ANMR and RTBC. So if you applied in one place, it doesn't limit you from applying in another call. Does the resubmission require any specific form? So for the PPM resubmission, you have a rebuttal section that you need to fill. And for the other calls, as we mentioned, it's highly recommended for the RTBC and ANMR to mention that this has been resubmitted in the PPM or ARG or other calls, and if possible to address the peer reviewers' comments that you received. Do we need to use resources from MOPH for the ANMR RTBC call? So this is, again, it's not a mandatory. It is recommended to reach out depending on your proposal, depending on the availability of the support of the MOPH, but it's not mandatory to use the MOPH resources for ANMR and RTBC. There's a question here, maybe Dr. Sara, will there be future calls for other disease areas such as diabetes and cancer?
A lot of the way we shape our calls is through national priorities and ecosystem studies. So based on the types of projects that we get in, we then base our strategic implementation of how we create these calls. So the answer is maybe, potentially, depends on the type of proposals we get in and the need of the national priorities to focus on these areas.
Another question here about the RTBC. Do we accept basic research for the RTBC call?
As long as it caters to the objectives of the call, then the answer is yes. So please refer to the RFA to see what the priority areas are, to see whether or not it fits into your research questions.
Thank you. A question here about the team hiring. Is it arranged through the submitting institution? Recruiting and the lead PIs, the PIs and the team members is the responsibility of the lead principal investigator in coordination with his collaborative PIs. So it's a responsibility of the lead PI in coordination with his partners. Is it possible to have more than one lead PI for the same application? No, it's only one lead principal investigator. He or she can collaborate with other principal investigators on the project, but there is no co-lead PI. Are postdoctoral fellows eligible to PPM? Unfortunately, no. Postdocs cannot apply as lead PIs because this requires like permanent affiliation to the submitting institution. Let me just go. There are some questions that are redundant. We'll try to skip them and address new questions. Does a research, this is about the RTBC called Dr. Sarah, does a research related to tissue engineering using biotherapeutics, biopharmaceutical, and advanced 3D printing technologies considered eligible topic to apply under the Road to Biopharma track?
Again, it really comes down to whether or not the concept behind your proposal fits into the objectives and the research priority areas. It would be hard for me to determine whether it is or not, so please refer to the RFA to see whether or not your research question applies to the objectives and priority areas.
Can research associate with a PhD apply to the PPM as a lead PI if affiliated to an institution inside Qatar? So research associate and research assistants and postdocs and lab manager, these fit under the research team members. Because of the requirement when it comes to the degree and because of the requirement to have full-time affiliation to the institution that they are coming from. Again, if they meet these requirements, it's up to the policies of their institution. Again, you have to keep in mind that the qualification of each research team members and the PI and the lead PI is part of the evaluation. It's one of the evaluations, so please keep it as a consideration when you allocate each team member to their role. One second, let me just go through the questions. So two questions. Reviewers keep bringing up points regarding budgets being spent mostly inside Qatar. Are the reviewers told about this role? Also, by limiting the budget mostly inside Qatar, what impact this have on attracting significant collaborations, given there is a lack of capacity inside Qatar? Other question is, what are the guidelines for the panel review? Is it scoring system? What mechanisms are there to resolve potential conflict of interest? So for sure, reviewers are fully aware of the fact that it's 20-80% when it comes to the PPM and the ANMR call, and they will be aware also that it's also fully inside Qatar for the rapid call. For the conflict of interest, we manage the conflict of interest very strictly, because we check first, we do our due diligence to make sure that there's no conflict of interest, and we ask the panelists and the peer reviewers to declare if they have any potential conflict of interest, and we manage it very, very strictly. Also, to address the other questions, also by limiting the budget mostly inside Qatar, what impact this have on attracting significant collaboration, given that there is a lack of capacity on Qatar? The idea is to have we kept this room of 20% for the PPM and the ANMR to benefit from this collaboration, and to allow collaboration and to attract collaboration from expertise outside Qatar. But also the idea is to invest in capacity inside Qatar and have the know-how coming to inside Qatar. I don't know if Dr. Sarah would like also to add to this point.
No, that I agree with you, Dr. Sadim.
Thank you so much. Since QPHI staff cannot be co-PIs on PPM submission, can they act as consultants? They cannot be added to the research team as consultant, but actually they can be added as part of the joint funder support. So when you add the joint funder support, you can mention personnel, and there you can indicate the expert or the personnel from the QPHI that will be supporting your project. Can an ARD grant that was submitted for previous ARG be submitted as a PPM proposal after addressing the previous reviewer comments? Yes. So if it was submitted as a new proposal to ARG2, it can be submitted one time to this PPM 08 after addressing. So it's going to be flagged as new, but you have to mention, as we said, declare to QNRF, that to QRDI, that it has been submitted to a previous ARG, and address the reviewer's comments. Yes. Is there a deadline to create the application for PPM and ANMR? So the deadline for the proposal submission to prepare and finalize and submit your proposal is 12th of March, 12 p.m. Doha time. Please make sure that you finalize your submission and don't wait until the last minute to prepare and submit your proposal, because with the high number of the submission, technical glitches might happen. So to avoid anything of that, please make sure that you don't wait until the last minute. And also to ensure that your institution have the time to vet your proposal, just refer to your institution, because some of the institutions have their internal timeline that might be earlier than the one that we indicate in our system. And keep in mind, please, that any application is not considered official submission unless it gets vetted by your submitting institution research office. Would molecular mechanism, molecular pathways, and potential clinical targeting underlying the impact of SARS-CoV-2 infection of neuronal cells come under the ANMR call? Dr. Sarah?
Yes, it is possible. Again, it depends on the specificities of your research question and how it aligns to the research priority areas. So please check on that through our RFA.
Thank you. For PPM, is it mandatory to use the QPHI data? It's not mandatory, although it's highly encouraged, and it's recommended also if you're collecting any data or new samples also to coordinate with QPHI. I'd like to refer to Dr. Hamdi here if he wants to also address this question.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. So it's not mandatory, but highly recommended.
Thank you, Dr. Hamdi. What steps will be taken by the Biomed community to preserve confidentiality of the discussed research concepts? For the bio community and any relevant issues, I highly recommend that you communicate with the community focal point, Mrs. Ibtisam. You can raise the tickets and they will get to you with that regards. Do we need the letter from institution of anyone participating in the research, including consultants? So if you have PIs from a collaborative institution, any collaborative institution needs a supporting letter. You will find the templates on the calls web pages. For the consultants, no, they do not need a supporting letter from for themselves or from their institutions. But you need to indicate justification about their role and why they added to this project. For ANMR call, is it only specific for HMC patients or any other patients' data from other institutions like Sidra can be added as well? It's not specific to the HMC patients. Any patients can be added as applicable and as needed and as appropriate for the project. I don't know if Dr. Sarah, you would like to elaborate or add any further comments?
That's completely correct, Sadim. It's not just limited to HMC. It's open to any resource you can tap into.
Thank you. I am a QU graduate. I don't have a research proposal. However, I'm very interested in the PPM calls provided. What are the suggestions to do? How are other ways that Qatar Research provide to participate? So for the PPM, I would highly recommend that you check internally or through your research office or through your network if there is any lead PI or PI from QU who is applying to the PPM. Maybe you can discuss with him or her, and if interested, if aligned, you can be included as part of the research team from QU. Could we get access to clinical data specific to cancer patients for the PPM call, such as molecular data, treatment data, or patients' outcomes? I believe this question is for Dr. Hamdi.
We do not have data on specifically cancer patients. So, but as I mentioned, we do have a record linkage with the EMR data, and the researcher can request to know whom from our participants, from the biobank participants that have been to the hospital and have any cancer diagnosis. So this data is available, but for a subset of participants, those who signed the consent to link their data with the medical records.
Thank you, Dr. Hamdi. We have another question. Can we apply for a neuro or for the ANMR call using a project that use or relies on zebrafish model? Dr. Sarah?
Yes, absolutely. There's no limitation to the types of models that you can utilize when addressing any of the research priority areas. Again, just as long as your research question is tailored to address the research priority area, it should be perfectly okay.
Thank you. Can we hire a biostatistician to help with the analysis and budget to pay them from the grant? So if they are going to be part of the research team, if they're going to be running part of the experiments or doing some of the statistical analysis, yes, they can be added. You have to check their roles, their eligibility, and their contribution to the work, and then align it to see which category of the research team they fit in, PIs or under the research team. members. The question was, how can our collaborators outside Qatar access data from HMC and QPHI? For HMC, I believe you have to come, your lead PI or your focal point in Qatar can reach out to HMC or any other submitting institution or any other stakeholders, reach out to them and ask about their resources. Otherwise, he or she can also reach out to MOPH to see what are the available resources. For QPHI, I believe the information are available on the portal and the data catalog. If I'm not mistaken, Dr. Hamdi, it's open for anybody who wants to view it inside our office.
Yeah, absolutely. Once they are awarded, they will sign all the required document for data access, and the lead PI can add this international member to the team and have access to the data.
Thank you, Dr. Hamdi. There is a question here. You just said that it's recommended but not a must to use MOPH resources, but in the RFA it's mentioned that utilizing the resources is an important evaluation criteria of the proposals. That's true, but it also depends on the project, the scope of the project, if it's necessary, if it's possible to use the MOPH resources. So this is also taken into consideration as part of the evaluation. Can there be more than one PI from the same institution? Yes. There's no limit on the number of the PIs from the same institution. Can we submit a grant previously submitted to the PPM as a new grant to the ANMR? I believe we have addressed this question. As long as it was a new proposal submitted to PPM 7, yes, it can be submitted to as a new to ANMR. And as we indicated, it has to be mentioned to QRDI. Should we specify the RAs in the submission phase, or there is no need? In the pre-award or in the submission phase, there is no need to indicate the details of the research assistants or research associate or the other research team members if they are not available. They can be added later on if the proposal gets awarded. However, if you have this information, there is no harm to add it to the submission system. Could you tell what modalities are available for brain MRI data from QPHI? I'm not sure what modalities, but maybe Dr. Hamdi, I don't know if you can address this question. What modalities are available for brain MRI data from QPHI?
Yeah, so we do have full body MRI and we do have brain MRI data. For more details, as I mentioned, you can submit a query and get this kind of details. But this is the data that we have: full body and brain MRI data.
Thank you.
For about 1,200 participants, not for all the subset, not all for the cohort, but for 100 to 1,200 participants.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hamdi. Which program suitable for digital platform development to apply? Again, this depends on the judgment of the lead principal investigator. He or she needs to check the objective of his research proposal and does it align for which of our calls, and also for the calls priorities and research areas. Dr. Sarah, if you would like to add anything to this.
I completely agree with you, Dr. Salim.
Thank you. I think we have time for one or two more questions. Most of the questions have been addressed or they are similar to previously addressed questions. Is there a platform to find related partners and teams from inside Qatar? So I highly encourage you, please, to visit our QRDI portal, where you will find a lot of information about all resources and for research inside Qatar, either equipment, either team, scientists, and also different entities inside Qatar where you can search using keywords, using awarded project. You can also look at our awarded projects using keywords, and then you can identify similar project and similar team members that are working on similar ideas, and you can reach out to them. And also through our portal, you can check the approved research office where you can communicate with these research office that can act as a submitting institution for our calls. Canary submitted ARG2 grant that was submitted from previous ARG2 but not awarded be submitted as PPM08 and be flagged as a resubmission. So if it was a resubmission in ARG2, it cannot be submitted to PPM8 because the resubmission basically can happen for only one time in the most subsequent cycle of our call. So if it was already a resubmission in ARG2, it cannot be submitted again to any other calls within QRDI. I think we ran out of time. We still have many questions. Unfortunately, we cannot address all of them. Most of them are similar to already addressed questions. Please, if you have any question, if you need any clarification, feel free to reach out to us through our support system. If you have any question related to the resources of our joint funders, you can find the links here on the slides or through our website, and we'll be more than happy to assist you. And I highly encourage you, please, not to wait until the last minute to finalize your submission to avoid any problems or any issues or any delays in the system or any delay to answer your question if it's a last minute question. So it's always good to act promptly and check your also own institution internal timeline because it might be earlier than our timeline on for the calls that are available on the system. I think we are done with the Q&A session. Dr. Sarah, if you would like to say anything.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sadim. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. Like Dr. Sadim said, you can always reach out to us. The email is on the slide for the queries. And I want to send a special thank you to Dr. Hamdi and Dr. Michael for your time and for your input. We're very excited to be working alongside you, and we're excited to receive the proposals from the community. Thank you, everyone.